the internet might actually blame you guys for it.
No, that's what you're expecting. That's what you're hoping, that the internet blames them for it. Nobody's gonna blame Ethan and Neela Klein. They're gonna blame you for making such bad PR and taking such poor shots that only backfired on you. This is going to rub so many people the wrong way, and they're going to clown on him for this. IDubbbz should never be taken seriously. He is utilizing the same snark talking points that originated these allegations. This was actually around the time when one of the big snark subreddits were going around spreading the Jardia claim. Of course, he'd be at least a little bit perturbed that you're not trying to dispel some of the rumors. There is no way that IDubbbz doubled down. I can't believe it. I'm like shocked right now. I'm in awe. But before we get into the main coverage, I want to look at this tweet. I want to look at this tweet because I feel like I might have been on the money again. I feel like I might have been on the money, given all of the fallout, given all of the backlash, given how so many people have now lost even more respect for IDubbbz. Take a look at this tweet and see if it ages well. You will never succeed again. You think aligning with Hassan was good? Hassan doesn't even endorse you. Way to shoot yourself in the foot and get another layer of bad reputation for your content cop. This will reflect poorly, right? Because following the debate that occurred yesterday, depending on when you're watching this stream or when you're watching this VOD, because I will turn this into a segment. You all know that the content cop was mentioned here and there during the debate, but Hassan did not endorse these individuals. He didn't do any effort to promote any of it, and he just said that he was going to go do his own donations. Nothing in regards to Creator Clash 3. And here Anissa is poking fun at that debate, right? So I'm very curious to see what exactly was mentioned here. I'm very curious to see if IDubbbz says anything about Creator Clash 3. And I wonder if he's going to double down and further ruin any potential good faith, any potential reputation that he has left. Which, you know, to be fair, he doesn't. But, right, who knows? Who knows? Who knows?
Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Content Deputy. Now normally in a Content Deputy I would dance around in my cop outfit in the woods, but this video isn't going to have any of that fanfare. We're just going to get straight into it. I was hoping that if I made a video about Ethan, he would act like an adult and he would keep the attacks directed at me and Anissa.
Already in the first 30 seconds of this content cop, this Ian is so out of touch with reality. There are so many people actively smearing Ethan, actively talking shit, actively making all of these incredibly bad faith criticisms, which, don't get me wrong, Ethan Klein does deserve his criticisms. Absolutely. The people that are currently trying to attack Ethan Klein are not the people to do it because they're bad faith. They really don't know how to look at this impartially. They have their own biases against Ethan Klein, such as Denims, Rogan, etc. And it's just incredibly hard for Ethan Klein to take anything this individual, anything he has to say seriously, following what Ethan Klein describes as a harassment campaign. This guy is completely delusional in the first 30 seconds already.
Unfortunately, I was wrong in thinking that because Ethan, in a desperate attempt to attack and smear Anissa and I, he started attacking our charity event.
I don't know if you know this, but the last year they lost $250,000. To be charitable, you actually have to give money to...
There's no way he made... Dude, there's no way. There's no way that IDubbbz made a turnaround after 12 hours. After 24 hours. There's no way that IDubbbz made a turnaround after 24 hours. This is so embarrassing. This is so embarrassing.
Charity, Hassan. You have to give money to be charity. It's like a slush fund.
This is literally what I was referring to.
Ethan and Neela are well aware that we raised $1.3 million for charity the first year of Creator Clash. The second year we operated at a loss.
Yes, the first year. Because you were still someone respectable then. But after that, you shot yourself in the foot, lost a lot of credibility, lost a lot of respect, which is what you're currently doing again, which means that you're going to operate at a loss yet again. Because your priorities aren't in the right place. Something changed between Creator Clash 1 and Creator Clash 2, which reflects poorly on your performance and as an event manager.
And I take full responsibility for that. We did band together. The community and the fighters involved ended up raising $175,000 for charity. It's been really
I did talk about this. I did say that this was respectable, that he tried to you know, generate at least something to donate. Very commendable on Ian's part. Very commendable on Ian's part. Nobody should ever take that away from him. That's something good that he brought up. I will give that to him.
Heartening to see how often Ethan will attack Creator Clash through us or attack us through Creator Clash.
Ian and Anissa, masters of putting on an event.
He's reposting random troll accounts that are very easy to vet. If you click on this profile, it has a bunch of Sam Hyde adjacent posts and it just hates Anissa and I. Come on, dude, you're one.
You could probably find that for just about anybody, but I understand the dishonesty, right? He was probably just asking for a refund as a joke to try to, like, you know, create a little bit of a to sort of stir the pot, so to speak.
Step away from calling me a cuck. Just take the plunge. He's highlighting this post that equates Creator Clash to a crypto rug pull. He's saying the event is going to be worse than TanaCon. Can't wait for them to blame us for their failed event. Don't worry, Ela. I'm not going to blame you guys for anything Creator Clash related. I know you're terrified of taking accountability for.
Before he mentions anything, before he talks about anything, it would be incredibly idiotic to blame Ela Klein because he's about to say accountability. It would be incredibly idiotic to blame these individuals for anything in relation to Creator Clash 3. You failed at Creator Clash 2. Given the fact that you did barely any advertisement for Creator Clash 3 and that you have completely plunged yourself in terrible PR through your own means by aligning with some people that are heavily despised on the internet, you can really only blame yourself, okay? You cannot want these people to hold themselves accountable. But additionally, I have theorized in the past, before he even says anything, that IDubbbz may have collaborated with another entity for Creator Clash 3, right? Because he was talking about sort of like, he was talking about in his apology video, if I remember correctly, or in one video, that people have reached out to him to try to buy the intellectual property rights off of him, but he didn't want to sell off the intellectual property. So it's entirely possible that he might be cooperating with somebody else. Who knows? Who knows?
Anything, so that will rest solely on my shoulders. But I can't speak for the internet. The internet might actually blame you guys for it. Now, with this recent revelation that people...
No, that's what you're expecting. That's what you're hoping, that the internet blames them for it. The internet is not going to blame Ethan and Ela Klein for it. The internet is not... This is such a delusional point. The internet is not going to blame Ethan and Ela Klein for it. They're going to blame you for your lack of advertising, for your poor management, for your double failures, which you seemingly are acknowledging right now. You're not even trying to combat this. It's like you've already admitted defeat already in the first like 2 minutes of the video, and it seems like you're already admitting defeat, which is incredibly embarrassing. It's like he knows that this event is going to just fall flat on its face as soon as it arrives, dead on arrival. Very interesting to see. Nobody's gonna blame Ethan and Ela Klein. They're gonna blame you for making such bad PR and taking such poor shots that only backfired on you. Like, sure, you may have appealed to a new audience, and your content cop may have been successful to another variation of this lefty audience that you're trying to appeal to, which is probably your goal. What you're not doing is gaining the respect of creators that can help promote this event. So you're making, like, so he's just hurting his success.
People are just going to use Creator Clash to attack Anissa and I. Anissa and I have decided to step away from Creator Clash. We have relinquished control to our business partners who ran the previous 2 events. They're very capable.
I fucking knew it. I fucking knew it. I knew it. Okay, so he hasn't... Okay, so... yeah. Back to the tweet. You will never succeed again. You think aligning with Hassan was good? Hassan doesn't even endorse you. I have relinquished control to our partners. Great stuff.
They know exactly what they're doing.
Great
they run events on a regular basis. The event is still happening. Anissa and I just don't have any financial ties. We don't have any ownership. We are, I think just going to be known as the founders of the event. Yeah, I mean, I think it had to come to this eventually.
Yeah, I figured. I'm not even surprised. Color me shocked. I'm not.
I can't keep my mouth shut. I can't, I mean, I can. I just didn't want to.
Gamma predicts it again! I see all! I predicted it again!
Let's...
He literally has nothing. He literally has nothing. You will never succeed again. Yes.
I want to be frank. I want to be honest. I was very quiet during the second Creator Clash because I was afraid of how that would impact other people. This year I said I'm going to do something different. I'm going to fight back if someone's trying to attack me. So that's what I did. And now I've realized, like, I can't really have my cake and eat it too. It's either...
No, dude, it's that you chose a very poor fight. You chose a very poor fight that you didn't have all of the information for, and you completely neglected to mention an incredible narrative. Not an incredible narrative. An incredibly important narrative in this entire coverage, which made you look dense, it made you look tone deaf, it made you look insincere, it made you look uncaring, and not to mention the person that you are attacking, right, used to be one of your friends, that you claimed as a friend, and then you literally admitted to being transactional yourself, and aligned with all of his enemies that were perpetuating and talking about allegations that have been pretty impactful to his real life. Of course you're going to have some sort of failure here.
You're gonna talk shit like a foul beast on the internet, or you're gonna have a charity event. You know, it really can't be both. I'm very proud of the event that we made with Creator Clash. It's still happening, June 28th. I'm just not gonna be involved in it. Please, for the love of God, support this event. You know, I feel like in some ways I'm like cutting off an arm so that I could escape the bear trap, and so I can fight. Well, that's a bad analogy. You guys get it. We've already told all...
It's a terrible analogy. You probably should have actually prepared a video before coming in blind and saying stuff that you probably are going to regret in the future that makes you look like an even bigger failure, because you're going to regret it again. You are going to regret it again.
All the fighters, and it seems like...
Why did he make this video? Why did he make this video?
Like, most people understand that this is the best move. If the previous Content Cop was entertaining to you, or this video is entertaining, or you like the message, the best thing that you can do, for me, is to support Creator Clash. Buy a ticket, buy a pay-per-view ticket, an in-person ticket, or donate to the fundraiser. I just want to see this event do well. You know, I didn't try this shit because I thought I was going to be a good boxer. I didn't think I would be an awesome event organizer. And
clearly, sorry, can we get eyes on every single time IDubbbz has... Okay, I have a little quest. I have a little quest for the viewers that are watching right now, for those of you that are really good at compiling information, and for those of you that like making like little, you know, humorous clips. Can we get clips of every single time that IDubbbz has morally grandstanded and pretended to be better than everybody else? You can't say this and then have morally grandstanded and have pretended to be better than everybody else around you and wanted to like dunk against Ethan Klein and take like, you know, all of these fucking steps in this direction and pretend like you're some, you know, arbiter of like, you know, virtue and moral values. What? You can't do this. You can't do this, you fucking moron. You're not entitled to that.
You know, now I'm finally back to where I started, which is making fucking Content Cop videos. I don't want to make this too ham-fisted, but I kind of do want to make it ham-fisted, because I'm like, I spent my last fucking 4 years working...
Okay, I don't want to make this ham-fisted, but I kind of want to make it ham-fisted. Dude, this guy is so incapable of anything. This guy is actually brain broken. Like, he's actually just incapable of anything.
Working on this stupid boxing shit. I mean, it was work.
He's making a content deputy on H3 in the first 4 minutes of this video, and I assume that like the further couple of like the further 4 minutes or the further 10 minutes are going to be him just, you know, self-flagellating.
Worth it, absolutely, but like, it's crazy that I've just returned to Content Cop. Having said all that, Creator Clash ticket link.
It's crazy that I returned to Content Cop. Can we get eyes on what he said at the end of the previous Content Cop? Hold on. Let's look at what you said at the end of your previous Content Cop. It's crazy that I returned to Content Cop. Let's see what you said in your previous Content Cop. So, it's crazy that you're bringing back Content Cop. However, you were preaching that you're bringing back Content Cop because you wanted to provide fair and just criticism. Well, he probably didn't say just, but he did say fair.
He needs a hug? No, he doesn't need a hug. He needs a good fucking ass whooping is what he needs.
Oh, look at how proud you were.
Something that's very important in bringing back Content Cop is to be fair.
Huh?
I think that was something that was not illustrated in previous Content Cops that I think should have been, and probably wouldn't have left me with so much regret. Ethan deserves all of the criticism that he's getting. I think it's very valid. But I also think, at the end of the day, we should acknowledge that he's human, because he is human. And
Oh, it's crazy that you're bringing back Content Cop. Yet you seemed to think that the Content Cop was pretty deserved. So is it crazy that you're bringing back Content Cop? This motherfucker, dude.
Link down in the
you know he's regretting his decision. You know he's regretting his decision, and he's utilizing this as a ploy to like advertise his creator clash. How pathetic! This is going to dude. This is going to rub so many people the wrong way. This is going to rub so many people the wrong way, and they're going to clown on him for this. They're going to clown on him for invoking Ethan Klein to then advertise his creator clash, and you know that Ethan Klein is going to respond to this. And he's going to trash on this too. I can already smell it in the horizon.
Go check it out, buy tickets, support the charity, support the fighters, and have a good ass time. I mean, ultimately, I think it's a good thing because I think I am meant to roll around in shit. I think me and Ethan are both meant to be rolling around in pig shit all day long, and other people are meant to do boxing or debating or whatever else. Ethan and me, pig shit rolling around type of fellas.
You underestimate my strength! I've got coach's strength! The will of Allah! I mean Yahweh! Yahweh!
I think the worst criticisms I labeled at Ethan is that he's a bad boss, a tyrant of a boss. I just implied that he—
Who are you to say these things? You have never worked under Ethan Klein. Who are you to say these things? Who are you to make these statements?
He was being taken advantage of by people either in his community or outside of his community, and I called him a bitch-made coward. That was like the summary of personal insults labeled at Ethan. Before Ethan even—
Okay, so you admit their personal insults. You admit their personal insults. You're not actually claiming them as a matter of fact. You do admit that they're personal insults. Okay, thankfully we got this out of the way.
Knew what my video was about, he was already framing me as anti-Semitic.
But he's like, no, actually, Ethan, the fucking Jew bag. Fuck this Jew bag Zionist baby killer, guys, right?
I don't know if that's what the video is.
I'm one of you. I fucking hate Jews too, guys. Let's get after it. Israelis have no right to defend themselves, actually. All Israelis are settlers, actually. What is he going to give me a history lesson now? Is he a historian? Yeah, he just discovered empathy, by the way, and only extends to the point where you're actually talking about Jewish people or Israelis. Then empathy stops and they should all be murdered. Bro's actually out there like Timothy McVeigh. He's running to the closest fucking kindergarten to blow it up. There's a Jew. I heard there's a Jewish
one. Timothy McVeigh did.
They want all you guys to—
I don't understand. He's just making jokes. What exactly is he pointing out here? IDubbbz is seriously going— yes, again, it's a very gross, it's a very bad joke to sort of like, slather on somebody like IDubbbz, right? But it's obviously a joke. There's no way that you're going to like, get down to this level and start being bad faith and dishonest.
I mean, I get that he's scared and offended, but this was the whole fucking point of my video, Ethan. I was saying that you shouldn't be doing this. It led to me making this video in the first place. You were triggered by the CPS harassment thing, and then you immediately equated Anissa and I to it. That was sloppy, and that was horrendous, and it was horrendous for us. And now you're doing it again.
I'm gonna watch it live.
Should you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't care. But like, why?
I just don't think—
That was sloppy? You don't get to complain about sloppy. You don't get to complain about horrendous and sloppy after making your first well, not failure, because it wasn't a failure, I have to make it clear. After making your first Content Cop in one of the most sloppiest ways possible, trying to take shots at Ethan Klein that you didn't have all of the cards for, right? You can't call that sloppy. Both of you are equally as fucking terrible, in my opinion.
I feel like you're gonna get really emotional and say something you regret.
Well, I got the button.
Like, I know you don't have a problem taking it head on, but I just feel
of course not, because I know that
you're understandably upset, and I feel like it might be a little—
Do we wait to talk about it, or you want to talk about it?
You should do it off stream. Because I don't know, this escalated initially because we were live and you guys were heated about, I forget what it was.
I just think it might be wise to watch it, think out your thoughts, and respond in a calm way. Because there's no chance that you don't get heated.
I don't need to fucking pre-watch this. I don't need someone else to hold my hand through it. Like, I'm ready to take on anything that these people have to say about me. He's like, no, actually, Ethan, the fucking Jew bag. Fuck this Jew bag Zionist baby killer, guys. I'm one of you.
Why have you... dude, IDubbbz is... Okay, you know what? I think it's fair. I think it's fair because Ethan Klein does the same thing. Ethan Klein kind of does the same thing. There's no way you're gonna be this dishonest and this petty, but Ethan Klein, to an extent, does the same thing. So you know what? I'll let IDubbbz have it for the sake of fairness. For the sake of fairness, I'll let IDubbbz have it, even though he really shouldn't be doing this. He really shouldn't be using these obviously, in the moment jokes to try to paint Ethan in this way. He really shouldn't be doing that because it makes IDubbbz seem incredibly desperate. But I'll let him have it, just out of fairness.
I fucking hate Jews too, guys.
You attacked us, so I attacked back, and now you're acting surprised and shocked, and you're doing it all on your podcast live. So naturally, you reacting live is you having an emotional reaction and seeing things that honestly are scary.
I just said I vented about them not defending me. What the fuck is he like? He's actually losing his shit and I just can't believe it, dude.
Did you call him out?
I mean, he was venting. He was venting, and that's fine. And that's fine. Again, this is just his content model. You're trying to use this criticism when it just doesn't work, because that is Ethan's content model. Always has been, always will be, and it works excellently for him. You're trying to criticize him for making an for treating a podcast as your venting space when that actually fuels the way that he earns money. That actually fuels the way that he earns money. I already talked about this. Every single time that Ethan Klein has a personal conversation on stream, you know what people do? You know what his chatters do? You know what his viewers do? They become members, they give memberships, they give super chats to try to give their own take with a super chat. Let's be real here, dude. This is such a fucking failure of a criticism. Who are you to decide what can be shown and what can't be shown on a live stream, so long as it isn't unethical?
So go fuck yourself.
I agree. Fair weather friends who are so happy to be friends as long as they're getting something out of it.
Ian sucks for the same reason.
You don't have to bring any of this up. You already made that point last time.
Right now.
Unless IDubbbz is just so... Okay, I've said this in the past, and I'll say it again. IDubbbz has never been an intelligent individual. His previous content comps were not that great. Points were not that intelligent, right? He's never been good at arguing. He's never been an intellectual. That's just how it is, right? The reason why his previous content comps were so successful was because in the moment, they were funny to an audience of a bunch of people that were preteens. Let's be real here, or teenagers at the time that found his edgy humor to be hilarious, right? So when he made a criticism, followed by a little bit of edgy humor, of course it lands very hardly. I mean, of course it'll land in a very comedic way, and it'll be remembered fondly. But he was never good at actually argumenting his criticisms or arguing his criticisms. He was never good at arguing his criticisms, right? There is no reason to expect any solid arguments from IDubbbz, and we see it reflecting again in this video.
You could say something.
Spineless. Our POV is like, fuck everybody, and I don't want to hear any excuses. You're not my friend, and you never were, and you never will be. You never will be.
What's very insane about this content cop is I was thinking about Ethan's feelings so much in that video. I thought about the idea of like how I shouldn't be saying the term Zionist or Zionism in that video, because I was like, he has explained before that that's personally insulting to him, and he doesn't like that. You know, regardless of how true it is, I was like, I'm going to think about Ethan's feelings and not mention this. Fast forward to him reacting to my video, he's just outright calling me a fucking Nazi.
Is it a coincidence that Ian really...
Okay, you know what? This is a decent point. This is a decent point that IDubbbz is making. I'll let him have this point. Let's hope that he just follows it up in a fair way. I just hopes that he follows it up in a fair way and doesn't, like, you know, pull a Hassan.
Shaved his head just before doing this video, and he's holding a swastika one. I mean, we can free Palestine without being a Nazi. You fucking Nazis. How about that? Well, this is the white savior, Ian, who's just found empathy, unless you're Jewish.
I mean, these are obviously jokes. At least partially. They're partially jokes. I also made the same criticism that Ethan Klein probably shouldn't have been that deconstructive. I mean, not that deconstructive. Ethan Klein shouldn't have been this petty, this vindictive, this rash, because, you know, that's his worst traits, in my opinion. I made the exact same criticisms, right? But you know what? I'm getting too into the weeds. I'm getting too into the weeds. I'll let IDubbbz have this point. I think IDubbbz having this point is fair.
Of course.
Ethan, people are allowed to shave their head and not be called anti-Semitic. I mean, if you're going to critique his podcast or be pissed off that he personally insulted...
Okay, they're not referring... Okay, to be clear, it's so unfortunate how IDubbbz had the ability to slam on this point and talk about, like, the whole swastika discourse and offer some pushback, but instead he's like, I shaved my head. That does... Dude, he is falling victim to the fucking, like, these lefty brainworms. He is falling victim to these, like, super lefty brainworms where he has to deflect from what you're actually being criticized for, and you could actually land a very solid, strong argument against the swastika sword, but you're just instead pivoting to something irrelevant.
You, even that is enough to be called anti-Semitic. It's fucking crazy. And I don't want to talk about Hassan's sword. I don't want to talk about Hassan's sword hilt, because Ethan himself basically admitted already multiple times he doesn't think any of us did that intentionally. And he would be right.
His sword
Do I think any of them actually like wanted to put a swastika in the photo? No, yeah, that's no. I don't actually think that. The chances that they did on purpose is close to zero, right? So I'm not accusing them.
I picked up a random sword in Hassan's room that was laying around.
Okay. Thank God. Never mind. Thank God. Let's see if he continues to build upon this point better.
Discussion, you don't actually need to debate Hassan about the sword hilt.
He left it up.
Decision making.
If it was a mistake, he could have deleted it.
But I'm not going to delete the photo because that would be indulging in your weird anti-Semitic fantasies.
We can free Palestine without being a Nazi. You fucking Nazis. How about that?
I'm done being nice to Ethan. I gave it a chance. My
Okay, I'm done being nice to Ethan. I gave it a chance. You cannot make this point. You cannot make this point if you did not play all of the cards previously, right? Or you cannot make this point after neglecting to mention the entirety of the CPS situation in your previous video. You cannot make this point. You were being very dishonest, very bad faith, and very backhanded in your previous video. You do not get to make this point.
Sincerity and my empathy in that last video was real. I was even equating to him having crash out moments in the same way that Denims could have crash out moments. I think we're all capable of it, but he was using it in the video to suggest that I was making fun of his mental health.
To my good friend Ian of 8 years, I really appreciate you weaponizing my mental health against me.
To make Ethan crash out. He's having a parasocial weird crash out. People can have crash out moments. Maybe if Ethan's able to get some help. Dude, I'm not...
This is such a very dishonest point. You kind of were like trying to utilize this snark talking point, which I also pointed out previously, about Ethan Klein going off the rails and being unhinged. Ethan Klein, as much as people like to say, sure, he may be a very petty, vindictive, rash individual, right? But he's not going insane. He's not going schizophrenic. He's not, currently going under he's not under a mental health crisis, okay? Ethan Klein has always been like this. He has always been like this.
Making fun of your mental health. Every example you used was me basically saying that other people are trying to affect you. It's understandable that you're going through this right now, Ethan. We all go through this.
To characterize...
Why is he trying to get at Ethan for the sword thing when Ethan himself said he didn't think it was purposeful and didn't want to talk about it himself? He's just grasping at straws. IDubbbz is literally just grasping at straws to try to, fight Ethan Klein in any way that he can. But again, as I mentioned, IDubbbz is nowhere near intelligent enough to actually fight this battle appropriately. He is nowhere near smart enough to actually combat Ethan Klein on any of these points.
Anything I'm doing as crashing out, that I need help, that I need to get some kind of treatment, is cruel and pathetic on a level I didn't think he would ever be possible of doing.
Every fucking example that you tried to smear me with was me actually pointing to something else that could be affecting you. He even brought up the clip of me saying, if you get help. We all need help. Everyone on this planet needs help. I don't care how you get it. You can wander into the jungle and go on an ayahuasca.
Oh, dude, you're fucking diluting your point so much that you don't have to take accountability for what you did. You're trying to walk this back by diluting the point so much that you can't, that Ethan Klein couldn't possibly pin anything against you. What a fucking cowardly, dishonest fuck, dude. What a cowardly, dishonest fuck. What a fucking failure of a person.
Trip. I don't care how you get your help or what you define as help, but if it helps you, that would be good, because right now it doesn't seem like you're getting much help. The main criticism that I was seeing online with my video from Ethan and Hila is that I didn't mention the CPS call.
What do you mean by help? What do you mean by help? What do you mean by help? What do you mean by help?
There's really just one central point that I want to make here. My good friend Ian, in his hour-long takedown, did not mention one time Child Protective Services. Not one time.
There was not even one mention of CPS.
And a lot of the clips he uses is us fired up from the day that CPS came to us.
So,
without even explaining that at least that's the context, it's pretty cowardly.
I wonder why I wouldn't mention the CPS call. Could it be that the CPS call happened the same day that you were shit-talking me, and I didn't...
He's already deflecting from the issue. He is already dodging the issue. He is weaving and sidestepping the issue, right? The reason why these people are mad that you didn't mention the CPS call throughout the entirety of this fucking video, throughout the entirety of your content cop, is because, one, you are directly aligning with people that have platformed dangerous individuals like Bad and Panada who perpetuate these terrible theories about Ethan Klein, which is the reason why he's complaining, and you aren't platforming Denims, right? And directly aligning with her, literally siding with her over Ethan Klein, calling her a good person when she was one of the main people to platform these allegations. Sure, she may not have been irresponsible, right? And this is a very clear and important point to take away from this. She may not have been responsible for the CPS call, and there's no way that you could actually appropriate any blame towards her, right? You cannot blame her for this stuff, but it's still very gross for her to platform these allegations and offer zero pushback. Well, zero pushback is not entirely fair. She offered the bare minimum amount of pushback, right? But even then, she still allowed these allegations to seem at least a little bit believable when she started reacting the way she did. When she said, it seems like every day, like it seems like every week that I check in on Ethan Klein, it's always something worse with that guy, okay? That's why this is important. But you're going to sidestep that, and you're going to pretend like you didn't know, even though everything in your video was around the same time frame and and included clips about the CPS stuff.
have any chance to defend
There's no way you could have not known if you're about to make that point.
myself. You just immediately, in the same podcast, right next to each other, said, CPS call was very traumatic. And then you said, fuck Ian and Anissa. And you linked those together, you kind of layered those flavors, and then Anissa...
Yes, because they wanted you to, like, they wanted you to say something to your friends so that they don't continue smearing him. They talked to you about this issue. They know you're close, like Ethan Klein thinks you're a close friend of his. And then he realized that you weren't. And instead decided to align with the people that were smearing him. You do not get to fucking make this point.
and I got a bunch of harassment. We had nothing to do with the CPS call. What are all these fucking comments on your Reddit saying like...
Yes, you may not have had anything to do with the CPS call, but when you're allowing it to just float freely, right? You may have had nothing to do with the CPS call, but that's not what Ethan Klein is particularly troubled about in this instance. What he's troubled about is that a friend isn't stopping his other friends. And again, this is an ode, right? This is an ode. But what Ethan Klein is complaining about, that you could have told these individuals that, yes, Ethan Klein is actually not this malicious of an individual, but even that you didn't do. Even that you didn't feel like doing.
Happened because of the CPS call. I don't entirely blame your audience for getting confused because number one, it's a fucking cult. And number two, you can't even get the timeline straight. So if anyone's watching your dumbass, their brain is also going to get scrambled.
So again, he's not showing the context. What was the okay, I'll play this part. Did you guys ever find the context of what I was talking about here? Because I feel like I wasn't even talking about him. I could be wrong. I just don't remember ever saying like, if I did say that,
I thought you were talking about them. About Anissa and Ian in that clip.
That's the same clip of
it's all the
when
part of the
CPS
same
was
clip.
called.
Yeah.
Same clip.
It's part of the same conversation.
You completely wiped your brain of what happened during the CPS stream. That's not my fucking fault. That's no one else's fault but yours.
All I wanted for you to do was say the bare minimum of like, hey, this is fucked up. This is not true about CPS, whatever, like the bare minimum. It came up because they were talking about it on their fucking podcast. By the way, they're the ones that like started this conversation by talking about it on the podcast. Be like, hey, I'm not getting involved.
I think that was their response after you guys initially called them out.
This is what I was talking about. You cannot have something terrible happen, be like, yes, let's make some content, and then shit talk your friends of 8 years.
I'm so fired up.
Okay, it wasn't necessarily shit talk. They were literally saying that they can no longer be friends with somebody who is unwilling to sort of at least help them a little bit during a situation when they are being heavily misrepresented and smeared, right? And again, I'll give IDubbbz the benefit of the doubt. That is not his obligation. That is not his responsibility, but it is understandable why Ethan Klein in this situation would be perturbed.
That's that.
And a lot of the clips he uses is us fired up from the day that CPS came to us.
For anyone confused about the timeline,
You know, I may really dislike Ethan Klein. but I dislike IDubbbz significantly more.
was talking shit about us on his Instagram before any CPS shit. He was also talking shit about us
Just statements to IDubbbz Instagram harassment. Okay. Yeah. This was actually around the time when the snark subreddit, or one of the big snark subreddits, were actually going around spreading the Jardia claims. Okay. So like, of course, he'd be at least a little bit perturbed that you're not trying to dispel some of the rumors of Ethan Klein being a negligent parent or being a negligent pet owner. In this particular case. A lot of CPS happens for your timeline, okay? Ethan shits on IDubbbz on his Instagram and on his podcast. Yeah, because, I mean, he's kind of expecting you to help him out a little bit. It's unfortunate that he would have that expectation of you and put you in that very tough position, yes. But it is not entirely something that is hard to understand on Ethan's behalf.
On his podcast before any CPS visit. On March 7th, CPS visits Ethan and Neela, and that same day, they decide, let's do our podcast, and let's have the topic be the CPS visit and how distraught we are about that. And then right next to that, right after it, you guys talk about me and Anissa. But you don't just talk about us. You shit talk us, and you imply that we're friends with people who are doing this, who are the ones who are harassing you.
I hope he... Okay, before I try to like argue this point, I want to see what he says.
Do you have evidence that H3 Snark called CPS on you?
Did I say that?
Random anonymous.
He didn't say that. He did not say that. I believe he said in his original, unless somebody has evidence to the contrary, which I would love for you to present, so I'm not misremembering. But what Ethan Klein said here, what Ethan Klein said about the CPS stuff, right, is that he doesn't know who called CPS, but he did say that the conspiracy theories, right, the snark being spread around by snarkers may have potentially led to this. He's not implicating anybody, so this is a very dishonest point to try to use against Ethan Klein.
Did I say that?
Wait, what's the...
I said they're primarily responsible for harassing me.
Who called CPS?
He's not. Yeah, he's not
What
trying.
the fuck? So I don't know.
He's not trying to implicate these individuals. He's just upset that they are willing to platform misinformation that leads to tragic situations like these happening.
To be honest, I'm very proud that I didn't immediately jump to Ethan and Hila's defense, because when you look into the story, it actually looks a lot shittier for Ethan and Hila. And I do mean that literally. There was this H3 stream.
He's going to use the snark talking points. He's going to use the snark talking points against Ethan Klein. He's going to use the snark talking points against Ethan Klein, because I've only seen this talking point on snark, okay? Prior to any of this, I have only seen, right? Even prior to this, because I went back and I did the research on H3 snark. I went back on FOMOA. I went back on H3 underscore productions, right? I went back to yeah, I went through like, four of these ones. Okay, so this talking point that IDubbbz is about to utilize is a talking point that was made in H3 underscore productions, where they take a clip out of context of Ethan Klein saying that his children were crawling around on the floor, potentially picking up shit and consuming it, and that's how they contracted Giardia, okay? So if IDubbbz is seriously about to utilize a snark talking point as a counter-argument when these people are the most uncharitable, schizophrenic, bad faith individuals in the world that could have misinterpreted that or interpreted that in the worst way possible, then IDubbbz doesn't deserve any respect anymore. And you could always give Ethan Klein the criticism. You could always criticize Ethan Klein for this. That Ethan Klein, as I said, is a very rash person, a very petty person that has a tendency to say things that can be utilized against him, right? You can give that criticism. And I've been giving him that criticism for the past 3 months. For the past 3 months, for those of you who have been, here since my very first streams. You can, in fact, give Ethan Klein that criticism, right? But you have to say it in a charitable manner. And what IDubbbz is going to neglect to do here is to argue that criticism in a charitable manner. So even this can be used against IDubbbz.
Where Ethan was dumping as per usual. He was talking about his own health. He was talking about his caca breath, his dog having diarrhea, his dog having Giardia.
Olive has Giardia.
Yep, there we go. He's using the H3 talking point. He's using the H3 underscore production snark talking point. Great fucking job, IDubbbz. Great job. You are compromised. IDubbbz is compromised.
The bacterial.
I saw this talking point originate on H3 underscore productions. And if I can get access to that, I will find it again and I'll show you guys, because they shut down that thread. It's completely privated. It's completely privated.
Infection in the intestines that makes you have diarrhea.
His child running around putting things in their mouth.
Sonny's crawling around. He's putting everything in his mouth. He's at that age. He has Giardia.
He is literally utilizing. Fucking hell, IDubbbz. IDubbbz cannot be taken seriously anymore. IDubbbz should never be taken seriously. IDubbbz should never be taken seriously. He is utilizing the same snark talking points that originated these allegations. He is now playing into it. IDubbbz does not deserve to be taken seriously anymore.
Giardia.
The whole family possibly having Giardia.
Oh,
and now Hila has Giardia.
Shut. For real?
And now I think this morning I had diarrhea.
Oh my god.
What can I do to not get it? From because I'm not trying to get it.
No, it's extremely ridiculous to get. You have to ingest my poop.
Talking about the viscosity of his child's shit.
And all the while, he is covered in low viscosity diarrhea.
He mentioned diarrhea a lot.
Night, all the time he's having these crazy diarrheas. You wash your hands as best you can, but these are really nasty diarrheas. And then extremely foul-smelling diarrheas.
So, of course, Ethan, having made so many enemies over the years, other people react to his content. And when other people see that he's talking about his children getting Giardia from dog poop.
Sonny's crawling around. He's putting everything in his mouth. He's at that age. He has Giardia.
People are quite reasonably concerned. And so, yes, anyone who's seeing that content might be concerned enough to call CPS, including Ethan's own chat, which, by the way, is not a measly number. It's about 26,000 at the time of this stream. So there are 26,000 people listening to Ethan go into great detail over 7 or 8 minutes about diarrhea, viscosity of diarrhea, his child having Giardia, him and his whole family having Giardia. They're calling it the poop house. Now, what Ethan does, instead of taking any responsibility for sharing too much on his live stream, is that he decides to attack specific creators like Denim's and say she was the source of the CPS call because her chat...
I don't even think that's true. I think Ethan Klein's argument is that he was angry that Denim's offered no pushback to dispel this type of behavior.
Was reacting to Ethan and saying, wow, this is concerning.
Is on her platform right now advocating for our children to be forcibly removed from us by Child Protective Services.
The problem with this...
Okay, yes, he didn't claim that she was the originator. He just claimed that she was endorsing the points, advocating, which is two entirely different things. And to be clear, this was actually a very shitty point for Ethan Klein to make, right? This was a very shitty point for Ethan Klein to make because she was not actually advocating for this. She was not actually advocating for this. This is not true. But again, still, like, you know, you can't criticize that this is untrue. But IDubbbz is going a step further, and he's conflating two ideas that aren't true, that, you know, that aren't related to each other, or they are related to each other, but aren't exactly the same.
CPS thing is that Ethan has proven to be a manipulative piece of shit. So when he calls on me to defend him, what the fuck am I meant to do? I don't trust you, and I'm glad I didn't trust you, because in your video defending yourself, you used a video that takes context from like 3 different places and combines them to make it seem like someone is coordinating an attack on you.
Love made a good point. You said, is this every comment? I believe this is a live feed of the chat. This isn't edited.
What about the top right? I thought these were...
No, it's this, I think when you full screen it, no, this is an edit. It's a cutout of the full chat. It's just enlarged over the screen, yeah.
They're different, I think.
Yeah.
It's not timed the same way.
But it sounds like based on this clip, you knew that it was bullshit, and you just went with it anyway. Ethan Klein uses this very deceptively edited video that is just like doing this smooth scroll to make it seem...
Okay, you know what? This is a fair point. This is a fair point by IDubbbz. IDubbbz is actually being pretty fair here. IDubbbz is actually being very fair here. This is a good point. I mean, not fair, but this is his only, or one of his only successful points throughout this entire video. This is one of those instances where you can definitely criticize Ethan Klein for looking at something not too critically and being rash and jumping to a conclusion and not taking the pushback that's being offered to him.
Like, that's all of Denim's chat, but that's not what it is. And then when he's called out on it, he hides it. He moves his window over the real chat.
Also, this is not a joking matter, by the way. It can be very severe and deadly to small children. I mean, much like many other illnesses,
the chat,
it's very, very, very dangerous.
Now pay attention to her.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, fair point. Actually, good point by IDubbbz.
Have a housekeeper anymore, or perhaps he lost his extra housekeeper. So now the house is just like covered in dog shit, and he has.
Okay, you know what? Okay, IDubbbz, good point. Good point.
Like, why does it have to be anyone else's fault but your own? Take some fucking responsibility. It's just so bizarre that Ethan would expect Anise and I to make us
take some responsibility. Okay, I can't get behind this because even though Ethan Klein said something rash that could have been interpreted in a very negative way, that does not mean that people should be at liberty to use that against him, slander him, smear him, and then perpetuate very, very dangerous allegations.
Statement. When Denim's herself already made a statement about it and said that she does not condone calling CPS.
So we're talking about CPS. 1, I don't condone. 2, I've never condoned it, and you will not be able to find a clip of me saying, yes, we should do this, because it doesn't exist. I've literally given Ethan Klein credit on multiple times, or multiple instances.
No one knows who called CPS. That is a very important point here. Nobody knows who called CPS. To try to blame that on anybody specifically, to try to blame that on Snark, right, or any specific source would be incredibly bad faith and incredibly dishonest and just not true.
And I will do it again right now for not showing photos of his kids.
Part of my criticisms of Ethan initially was the openness. I think it's a problem that you were that open, Ethan.
Well, you know I'm very open about everything. It's part of how I wanted to conduct myself and how I wanted to relate to the audience is to be open as possible about every fucking thing in my life.
It is not strictly a benefit to be as open as possible on your podcast.
Ethan was just sharing his thoughts. What we were thinking, we were speculating.
Sonny's crawling around. He's putting everything in his mouth. He's at that age. He has giardia.
We were speculating.
Oh,
and now Ela has giardia.
Shut.
Be open as possible about every fucking thing in my life. Really? How many siblings do you have?
I don't know, dude. The internet's too fucking weird to give out all that information.
Oh, you don't even want to say how many because you're afraid that it will
by all means,
compromise
keep
your
talking
privacy.
about it.
On top of Ethan characterizing me and my wife as anti-Semitic, he also takes a dig at my tattoos.
Bro, you literally look like a fucking free tattoo pack.
Okay, QQ sent me this. I think it's important to talk about this a little bit more, so we're gonna do a little bit of a derail. So this is the post by Yeet, our favorite coward who compiles information. Ian Jama ponders if it was Ethan's own audience that called CPS on his family. Anyone who's seeing that content might be concerned enough to call CPS, including Ethan's own chat. I agree, right? I agree. Ian could have made this point a little bit better. But right, Ethan does have the tendency to say things that can work against him, that people can utilize against him, and even, his own chat, right? Anybody could definitely interpret what he's saying sometimes in the worst way possible. But that doesn't mean it's okay. That doesn't mean it's okay for it to occur, right? This is a fair point that Ian can make, but he's just going about it in one of the worst ways possible. He's going about it in one of the worst ways possible.
That you get for 25 cents from a windy thing, bro. Like literally my kids have cooler fucking tattoos from Chuck E. Cheese. Bro looks like he just went to the menu and was like, I'll take that one.
Why are you complaining about your tattoos being insulted? Why are you complaining about something so petty and insignificant?
That one, and that one.
I have quite a few options here. I can show your tattoos in all of their glory, or I can show that your tattoo made it to the top of awful taste but great execution subreddit, which is not a good thing.
This is such an insignificant thing to point out. But you know what? I'll let him have it. Because, you know, Ethan Klein is equally, if not more petty. Sure, go ahead. Sure, go ahead.
I mean, it might be a good thing for the artists that you work with, because that means that they did a good job from a technical standpoint, but it's sort of a failure in every other aspect, particularly the decision-making aspect. If you want to go tattoo for tattoo, Ethan, we can do that. You want to keep it to other things? We can. I'll give you that option.
Okay, now you lost me. Now he lost me. Don't care.
Ethan also talks about the potential CTE that I might have after boxing.
Yeah.
Ethan, your whole system is scrambled.
No, your brain is scrambled from getting punched in the face too many times because you
He's obviously making a joke. He is obviously making a joke.
don't understand the situation. Some people are saying the CTE is starting to take effect, I guess. That would be comforting if there was some explanation, at least.
Any amount of CTE that I may have endured after doing 2 boxing matches, I'm going to say is preferred over having to share the load of doing 50 jumping jacks with my wife.
Yeah, what if we both do? We'll both do 25 at once.
25 each?
Oh my goodness.
Great form by both.
Really nice. They must work out.
You know what? That's a very, you know what? The good dig by IDubbbz, but unfortunately the humor isn't all there. You know what? This is a pretty good dig by IDubbbz, but it isn't all there. The humor isn't all there.
Also, why are you talking about CTE at all? Like, you've continually illustrated that you can't keep track of anything.
It came up because they were talking about it on their fucking podcast. By the way, they're the ones that like started this conversation by talking about it on the podcast. Be like, hey, I'm not getting involved.
I think that was their response after you guys initially called him out.
He can't even keep straight who attacked who first. He thinks that our podcast, where we're expressing sympathy for him and Hila, was the impetus for him talking shit about us. I much prefer boxing-induced CTE than harassment-induced CTE. Ethan acts like we're such great friends and that, like, he shared such intimate moments with me, but it's all horseshit. He's lying. Like, the whole thing is a fucking lie. He's manipulating his audience. We did not have a close relationship.
You guys were buddies for a long time.
Okay, if you didn't have a close relationship, why do you care? If you didn't have a close relationship, then what was the point about wanting to be friends with, you know, Ethan Klein in the past? What was the point of wanting to be friends again when stuff gets good again? If you didn't have such a close relationship, then what was the point of getting so butthurt, right? At that point, just move on, cut your ties, deal with it, and don't try to, like, you know, become a snarker in your own right. This is gonna reflect terribly on you.
Like one time, like, hey, dude, we should talk this out. And I was like, I don't feel like having this conversation right now. That's it. So he kept trying to get me on the phone or text with me. And I told him, dude,
okay,
honestly, I don't feel like having this conversation.
You can't just bring up, I texted him 5 different times and not provide proof.
Right now.
Okay.
Fair, right? I just didn't want to do it. Okay?
Just in that particular moment,
and
or like at all?
Well, it turns out I didn't want to talk to him at all.
Okay.
If the relationship was that close, you would have talked to me on the phone. You wouldn't have shit-talked me. You would be curious where my brain was at and where I was coming from. There's this moment in the Content Cop where I'm trying to give an example of the cycle of harassment. Have you ever been in a comment section and found someone to argue with? It doesn't stop. It can literally go on forever if you don't want to touch grass.
I mean, yeah, this was kind of... Okay, what's that to do with me?
I don't know.
Are you okay?
No, that was actually a pretty fair point. I feel like that is a good representation of what Ethan Klein does. He picks at something, continues arguing back and forth, and since none of these people know how to be the bigger person, right? It's a perpetual cycle of, no, I have a bigger dick. I have a bigger dick. Or no, I have a bigger dick. Or no, I have a bigger dick, right? This is a fair point. Ethan is just being obtuse in this point.
Ethan and Hila act like they have no idea what I'm talking about here. So, I mean, maybe they don't. It's a very obvious and easy to digest point. That's why I made it that way. I'm going to explain it here so everyone on the internet understands. When you have a podcast where you are constantly emotionally dumping and saying things just...
Infinite one guy machine. Yeah, we can call it the infinite one guy machine.
Off the top of your head, and you're attacking other people randomly. Maybe from your perspective, it's not attacking. Maybe you're just commenting on someone else's situation.
He's got to be one of the most visually repulsive people. FaZe Banks, like, in my opinion, he's somewhat repulsive to look at.
And
pedophile. Pirate Software was like weird about it. I was like, look at my old voice, it's so lame. What an obnoxious loser. She goes, I can't believe these people are so obnoxious. And he looks like an idiot who's obsessed with me, dude.
But what happens when other people comment on your situation? It doesn't feel too good, does it?
But he's like, no, actually, Ethan, the fucking...
Well, again, you can't utilize your own video as an example because of how dishonest you were, okay? If you were to use, like, some parts of Gokunaru's video, or some parts of, like, other good criticism pieces, then perhaps that would work, but you do not get to, like, invoke your own video as a good example for calling Ethan out, given how much dishonesty, how much misrepresentation of information was there, and how, you know, little transparency there was, and how you neglected to mention a lot of important details, and how much stuff you took out of context.
fucking Jew bag.
You do not get to do that.
Fuck this Jew bag Zionist baby killer, guys, right?
I don't know if that's what the video is.
That is the back and forth I'm describing. You might have thought, we were just saying that Ian and Anissa are bad friends. Well, guess what? We didn't take it that way.
Our POV is like, fuck everybody. And
Dude, what? So this entire video is just literally IDubbbz complaining that Ethan Klein just dunked on him and continues to dunk on him as if there isn't significantly more people constantly dunking on him. This is literally IDubbbz just fucking fuming, crying about how much of a failure he's going to be and how much of a failure he's going to become and how he can attribute that to like Ethan Klein shitting on him. This entire he's complaining about H3 venting. This entire video is just a fucking vent. He's not actually criticizing like, you know, Ethan Klein, and the few criticisms that actually land, he's doing a terrible job at executing. What a fucking pathetic display. What a fucking pathetic display.
I don't want to hear any excuses. You're not my friend, and you never were, and you never will be. You never will be.
What we took it as is Ethan and Neil are shit-talking us. They just implied that we are okay with people using CPS as harassment, and now all their fans are brigading us. So I am going to respond in kind and make a content cop. So yes, that is what the cycle of harassment looks like.
Okay, what's that do?
Eternal one guy! Eternal one guy! Eternal one guy! Eternal one guy! Yes!
I don't know.
How about you fucking Nazis? How about that?
You might think that all the harassment you're getting has everything to do with your politics and your idea of Israel-Palestine, but a lot of my gripes were centered around you dragging me into your shit. You know, you knew that you were going through a lot, and you were saying, I'm hurting, I'm now going to make them hurt because they're not putting their head on the chopping block. Fuck you, you're a piece of shit. I'm sure there's anti-Semitic people that are attacking you guys, but they're...
You know what? I think that's fair. I think that's fair for IDubbbz to have. I think that's actually fair for IDubbbz to say. I think this is a completely fair point. I think it's a completely fair point. I think he's entitled to that, right? The way, people know how the internet works. As soon as you drag somebody into a situation like this, people are going to typically interpret a situation like this, right? If somebody else is mentioned in the worst way possible, and how they're involved in this in the worst way possible, and then continue to talk shit about them and treat them very unfairly, even though they have no reason to be involved in a situation like this. That's a fair point. That's actually a very fair point.
Not me. They're not Anissa. It's not Hassan. It's not all these other creators that you're attacking. You're not the biggest victim on the internet, Ethan. Other people can experience a horrible fucking time. And guess what? They're not getting this other benefit, which is 26,000 viewers. You're getting a lot of money and a lot of content, a lot of things that you care about from these beefs and from this harassment. There are a lot of...
If you can't handle it, regardless of how much fucking support you're getting or how much hate you're getting, don't go on the internet. If you can't handle it, don't slink shit back. Step the fuck away. Cut your losses. Even if you are losing very unfairly, step the fuck away, okay? And if you can't handle it and are going to constantly complain about it, you are not built to be on the internet. You of all people should know this. You of all people should know this given your previous content cops. You should know this. You do not get to make this point, Mr. Content Cop. You do not get to make that point, okay?
People that you've just bullied and they have nothing to gain out of it. Frogan isn't making a bag from this. She's not getting content out of this. You're attacking her in relentless ways and endorsing so much worse harassment than what...
Then she should probably shut the fuck up and not continue and not she should probably shut the fuck up and not take hits back. If you take a hit, you're going to get hit back. And then you're going to want to hit back, and then you're going to get hit back again. And if the person has significantly more power to keep doing so, then you should probably cut your losses and admit you're fucking admit that you lost, right? Admit that you lost at least internally to yourself. Don't come out in public and say, oh my god, guys, I lost. I will no longer be participating in this. Admit that you lost. Step the fuck away. Mr. Content Cop, you should know this.
Even you send her way.
The shit he said and posted about Frogan over the past years is like insanely nasty shit.
Yeah.
Worse than anyone I've seen. If this is true, absolutely mind-blowing, insane shit.
Hold on, it's not worse than anything you've seen. How could it be worse than anything you've seen?
Literally, no. I guess
he was
not.
very nasty. Well, I'm just saying, people like fucking want to lay down and fucking like.
I'm talking about specifically against Frogan.
But he called her fat, right? And a fucking baby killer.
I was talking specifically about
That's way
Frogan.
worse than being called fat and ugly, in my opinion.
Also, on top of Ethan and Neela constantly victimizing themselves, I did notice that as soon as we didn't immediately jump to Ethan and Neela's defense, Ethan took that to heart and he started to make that his employees' problems. Instead of just, sucking it up and taking on himself, he decided to imply that Lena is going to have a problem with that.
A lot of this has ramifications for the crew. The way that they have it set up is basically, if Lena were to drop out, she would lose, she would have to pay back $25,000 or something insane. And besides that, which I told her I would cover if she wanted to drop out, she's working really hard. And just because I'm having an issue with what's going on here,
You bringing up Lena dropping out of the fight was you publicly showing to your fans, like, I don't approve of this. You were saying this shit before the content cop even came out.
Which I told her I would cover.
Okay, no, you can't pin all of this on... You can't pin... Dude, how are you this oblivious? How are you this unaware? How are you this unaware? How are you this oblivious? How are you this oblivious? Right? You can't pin this on Ethan. You knew where people's alignments were. You knew where people's interactions were. You knew who defended who. And you still went out of your way to directly align with Hassan, directly align with Denims, directly align with Frogan, directly align with Sean DeBlanc. All of these individuals who have taken shots at Ethan Klein. Sean DeBlanc calling Ethan Klein Ethan KKK Klein. Okay? Frogan, self-explanatory. She's not as bad as the rest. Denims, again, platforming and perpetuating false allegations, right? She wasn't responsible for the CPS calls, to be explicitly clear. And then Hassan, somebody who was platformed bad empanada, self-admittedly, according to the debate from yesterday, right? You are directly aligning with these individuals that people despise because of these reasons. You are alienating multiple creators who don't condone that type of stuff, such as Harley Morenstein, right? And you want to pin this on Ethan Klein? You knew, like, this is what you signed up for. This is what you signed up for. People are already in teams, right? That's how the internet is. People are already in teams. When you force people to pick a side, and then the side that you choose happens to be one of the most unlikable side of all time, right? That is constantly under fire by a side that thinks Ethan Klein is more optically good. You can't pin this on Ethan Klein. That is just you being significantly unaware of optics and logistics. That is your fault.
If she wanted to drop out.
But now you were saying that you didn't have a problem with any of it until I made the video.
I was totally on board until the organizer put out a video calling me a psychopath for harassing his friend.
Obviously, Ethan and Neela will victimize themselves every chance they get. But when they have the chance to victimize someone...
Oh, but don't you do the same? Don't you do the same? Who are you to be making this point? Who are you to be making these points?
Else who's on their crew, they'll also do that.
You already forced Lena into this horrible situation. And again, you forced this situation on her.
Why would I do such a...
You did force the situation on her. Even though you don't want to own up to it, you making that content cop alienated these people. And that reflects in Harley Morenstein, even without Lena. It's that you're trying to piggyback on this to try to make it seem as if Ethan Klein sabotaged your event, when that's not the case. You brought this onto yourself. You brought this onto yourself.
Thing to Lena? Dude, you have as much agency as I do. You didn't have to badmouth me on your podcast. That was a choice that you made.
So go fuck yourself.
I agree. My good fucking friends who I stood by after all these fucking years can't find a spine to speak up.
Oh, the organizers of this event are not jumping to my defense? All right, well, maybe instead of shit-talking them, maybe I should zip it.
So go fuck yourself.
Yes, you should have zipped it. You should have zipped it because now you literally, if you had never made this video, and if you have never pit so many people against each other, and if you have never chosen a side, right? Which is like the last thing you want to do in a situation like this. Influencer 101. Do not choose a side during times like these because you will alienate your audience that you have a lot of crossover with, or a lot of like social crossover with, right? You shot yourself in the foot. How are you this unaware of that issue?
I agree. You already forced Lena into this horrible situation. And again, you forced this situation on her. By the way, IDubbbz, Lena's fucking having a panic attack.
So go fuck yourself.
I agree.
But you're just lobbing it to me and Anissa. I'm lobbing it back to you. You're the one who brought it up. If you lob it back to me and you say, well, I didn't have your back publicly. Well, fuck you. I'm going to lob it back and say, you're being irresponsible on your podcast and you're not taking any accountability for the shit you're putting out online. I think that's going to do it for this video.
You know what? That's fair to an extent. That is very fair to an extent, but I wish he would have gone into more specifics of what exactly he is saying that can be used against him, right? Again, he just fails to capitalize off this point, which could have been done well, but he just doesn't know how to argue it, and it's pissing me off.
There's a lot more that I can share, but I'll save that for the future. And in closing, I will reiterate so that...
No, don't save it for the future. Throw it away. Throw it away. Throw it away. Don't save it for the future. Throw it away. Throw it out. You're done. You're cooked.
Anissa and I are no longer involved in Creator Clash. We're
Figures.
Stepping down completely. We hope that the event is a massive success.
Stepping down completely? Okay.
This year, we hope that all the fighters get what they wanted out of it. I'm sorry that I'm such a...
Okay, so he's aware of this. He's aware. Look, he's aware of this. He understands, and I'm pretty sure he alludes to this over here as well in the beginning of the video. He's stepping down away completely, right? He's stepping away from Creator Clash completely because he knows that he is a stain on the brand. He knows that he is a stain on the brand. And if the brand fails, and if Creator Clash 3 fails, when it comes around again, he won't have to take any accountability for it because he can always use this as plausible deniability and say, oh, I wasn't responsible for it this time, so how could I possibly be, blamed for this? This is very strategized, and it's very dishonest. You know that you have to step away from it because you know that you are staining that brand. You know. You won't admit it, but you know. And you alluded to it here. This weaselly motherfucker.
Fucking nasty person who just wants to roll around in the shit. I'll put the link to Creator Clash down in the description if you want to support them in their mission to get creators to fight and raise money for charity. You can do that down there. I will be doing that on my own, and I hope you guys have a good time. Also, for all the people who touch grass, I want to remind you to click the like button on this video, not so it goes in your algorithm or anything, just specifically so that we can add a counter narrative, or I can get an idea of how much astroturfing is out there, because I know that a lot of these fuckers, they love their dislike button extensions. And I saw that shit and I was like, what the fuck? These are all like fabricated numbers. The like-dislike ratio was like 80-20 on my video, and then they tried to create a narrative of like, no, people actually hate this content cop, guys. It's actually so much worse. Like, bitch, like, people were more upset with, like, my wife being on OnlyFans. You're not gonna convince the internet that fucking Ethan Klein isn't being a piece of shit. Like, sorry, guys. It doesn't matter how many dislike extensions you have.
We can free Palestine without being a Nazi, okay? Yeah, fuck you.
Okay, you know what? Good combat. Good combat. I mean, it's obviously very soy. It's obviously very petty, but fuck it. I'll let him have it.
You guys do, okay? How about you fucking Nazis? How about that?
It's blatantly and obviously fucking disingenuous. This shit blew my fucking mind. Like, this is fucking insane. And, like, dangerous. He is going out of his way to slander you as a neo-Nazi. Like, that can get you hurt.
Thank you, Ethan Klein. You are my best friend. You are the...
Anything towards the end? Anything towards the end that is actually worth looking at?
You are the legend. Thank you, Ethan Klein. You are my best friend. You are the rent payer. You are the legend.
Conclusion on this video, now that we're finished with it. This is literally just a giant cope fest with IDubbbz trying to pick up as much shit as he possibly can within the last 24 hours, within the last week, and trying to sling it right back at Ethan Klein. But unfortunately, he fails to capitalize off of any good point that he has. So it makes him look like a complete fool that is obviously taking petty shots at Ethan Klein. All of this video is him being petty, him being angry, and him being upset that he wasn't getting the response that he wanted, and basically just admitting defeat, even though he doesn't do it directly. He's basically saying, you know what? I lose. You fucked me over. You fucked over Creator Clash. But to avoid being tied to it, and to avoid staining it further, I will now step away from Creator Clash given how many issues there are, and I will move on. He's literally mad. He's literally just angry that he made a tone-deaf video that backfired horrendously. Sure, you may have appealed to an audience that you are trying to captivate specifically. Sure, you may have done exactly that. You may have succeeded in that avenue. But it's working against you, because what you're not doing is garnering the respect of your peers, of other YouTubers that could help you through a situation like this. That could, like, you know, put their own necks on the line to help your event grow. A pathetic display. A very pathetic display. What more is there to say? IDubbbz failed at every corner. He shot himself in the foot. Absolutely horrendous. Incredibly fucking horrendous. Any good point that he could have used, like, that he could have had on Ethan Klein in the previous content cop and in this content deputy, he failed to capitalize on. He failed to deliver. This goes to show just how unintelligent and how compromised IDubbbz is, especially after trying to reiterate a snark talking point. Great fucking job, dude. Great job. But anyways,